All right, bros, we got 7 hours. Let's see if we can do this or what happens. I don't know if we can. I doubt it. I'm going to try. I'm going to stream, play it the whole 7 hours we got. Hopefully we'll get it. And if we don't, we don't. We just don't. All right. Okay. Okay, dude. Okay. Yes. Yes, all right. Okay. There we go, bros. Sorry, dudes. I'm sorry. We probably won't complete this either, but we're going to try. Okay. Sure we go. We need some big scores, bro. Some big ones.
General quarters. instructions.
I hope we got this, dudes. If not, we're not gonna get it.
Enemy force detected.
Torpedoes, dead ahead. Hull breach. We're taking on water quickly. Problem solved, sir.
Enemy battleship detected.
We've destroyed an enemy cruiser.
Torpedoes to port. Hull breach. We're taking on water quickly.
Oh, big boat.
waterline. We're flooding quickly. Problem solved, sir.
Best, but it was decent. Decent enough. Oh God. serves 73 minutes. 43 minutes, rather. That's what we have.
Autopilot mode enabled.
I don't think we're gonna get it, Bruce. I don't. I don't know if we'll get it.
General quarters.
Good luck, everyone. Many thanks.
Awaiting instructions.
Enemy force detected. Enemy destroyer detected. Enemy battleship detected.
Autopilot mode disabled. The ship is on fire! Problem solved, sir. The ship is on fire.
cruiser destroyed.
Enemy destroyer detected. Enemy battleship detected. Enemy cruiser detected.
All stations, reporting the position of a strategic target. Torpedoes, direct front.
Enemy battleship sighted.
Enemy battleship foundered.
Main turret critically damaged. The enemy is about to win.
Enemy cruiser detected. Enemy destroyer sighted. Enemy cruiser detected.
Enemy battleship foundered.
Enemy aircraft carrier.
We've sunk an enemy destroyer. battleship.
Some 6 ships. Yay. Almost got 100,000. I need those. Okay. Wait a minute, bros. Hey, give me something to drink. I'll be right back. All right, bros. Sorry I had to give me something to drink. Open it up here. Get going. Yep, it's about ready. Place it. Thank you. Just drive farm out, dudes. I think the fruit punch ones are better myself. Just me. Okay. Now what we got? Need 300,000 like a million. 4 million. Let's just try to keep going, bros.
Autopilot mode enabled.
General quarters.
Okay.
Awaiting instructions.
Okay. I'll find just something like whatever's going on. Something. Oh, that sort of.
Autopilot mode
The Trump
disabled.
administration is preparing to issue an executive order halting gain-of-function research. Controversial experimentation on viruses is increasingly feared to have caused COVID in the first place, with the CIA declaring in recent days they too believe COVID likely came from a Chinese lab and not from animal spillover. Now, the theory was once considered fringe and even a conspiracy by the mainstream media. Well, it's now itself mainstream. One lawmaker who has been sounding alarms about it for a very long time is Kentucky Senator Rand Paul, who has frequently sparred with Dr. Anthony Fauci about U.S. support for this research.
Just yesterday, the Senate committee the Senator chairs subpoenaed 14 federal agencies from the Biden administration in a sweeping investigation into the origins of COVID. Here to elaborate on that investigation is Senator Paul, who also serves as chairman of the Senate Homeland Security and Government Affairs Committee. Welcome to Rising, Senator.
Thanks for having me.
Great to have you back. A lot of news related to COVID origins and gain of function in recent days. Of course, there was the preemptive pardon of Dr. Fauci, which I'll ask you to address in a minute. But first, can you just give us more information about what you are seeking in terms of these subpoenas from the agencies you are pursuing?
Hull breach. We're taking on water quickly.
Generally, we want to know what type of gain of function research is going on throughout government and what kind of oversight there is. We're very concerned because the research money that was sent to China, to Wuhan specifically, went before a group of people in the NIH called the Dual Use Research of Concern Gain of Function Committee. It went before that committee and it should have gone next to a safety committee, but somehow that committee was bypassed. We've been asking specifically for the deliberations of that committee. What were the arguments for why it didn't need to go to the safety committee? What were the arguments for why it was or was not gain of function? The NIH has steadfastly refused to give us this information. It's a very specific meeting. We know it exists. The only reason we know they even met to discuss it, though, is because Freedom of Information retrievals have shown us this. They have never admitted that they even have such a meeting. They will not tell us who attends the meeting, and they will not give us the deliberations of what occurred at the meeting. But we are going to find this out. We've sent them a subpoena. We now have a friendlier administration, and we will get to the bottom of this. This is incredibly important because if we have ongoing money that is funding dangerous research, we need to know who's discussing it, who's involved with the deliberations, who ultimately approves it. Was this ultimately approved by Anthony Fauci or Francis Collins? And why did they bypass the safety committee? These are big questions, and they're big questions also as it moves forward. Now, the fact that the president's going to put a pause on gain of function is a good idea. We did this from 2014 to 2016, and then we instituted the safety committee, which they promptly bypassed. So what we want to do is actual legislation this time. We have something called the Risky Research Review Act, and it would set up a presidential commission of scientists to evaluate each gain of function proposal within government and either fund it or not fund it after an extensive safety discussion.
One more question there, Niall. So on the Fauci front, you mentioned this pause in gain of function research that existed. That
The hardest thing is obviously finding products to sell and then getting authorized to sell those products. So with Ecom Authority, they've been able to do that.
We're going to set you up on Walmart. We're going to pick out your inventory so that you get started with the right tools in place. Our success is tied to yours, which is why we're focused on supporting your growth from day one.
The scheme involved logistics companies, warehouse owners, and corrupt truckers. They worked as criminal partners to defy U.S. customs laws, to illegally smuggle enormous quantities of goods from China into the United States. 8 of the 9 defendants have been arrested. One defendant, the lead defendant, who orchestrated the scheme, is a fugitive and is believed to be in China. Let me talk to you about how the scheme worked. As part of the scheme, the defendants and their criminal partners in China filled shipping containers with contraband, counterfeit goods, illegal and dangerous chemicals, and other contraband that is not permitted to be imported into the United States. U.S. law requires that all containers coming into the United States be sealed with a locked security seal that is assigned a unique number. This is a security system. Containers from the time they leave China cannot be opened until they arrive in the United States and clear the Customs and Border Patrol inspection process. And the seals are key to that security process. Members of this scheme in the United States and China evaded this security system by learning in advance the unique serial numbers assigned to these seals that would be associated with their illegal shipments. And they created duplicate fake seals in order to circumvent the inspection process. They would create those duplicate fake seals in China, and they would send them from China to their criminal.
All right, so a major bust there in Los Angeles. What we want to do, everyone, right now is take another 2-minute break here on Live Now from Fox. When we come back, we will take you out to Doral, Florida, where we will soon get an update on deportation flights. This coming from the House GOP conference that...
And welcome back here to Live Now from Fox. I'm Andrew Kraft. We want to get into more of these top headlines, including on immigration enforcement. ICE conducting raids in cities over the weekend nationwide. I want to put this up. They've been putting this out each and every day. This is today's enforcement update. They say 1,179 arrests have been made and 853 detainers have been lodged, and those are the daily statistics as of midnight, according to ICE. Well, our next story takes us to the Dallas, Texas area. A beautiful Live Now look there over the Dallas skyline, where some of these very raids were conducted in the last 48 hours. We're going to be joined by my friend there at Fox 4 Dallas, reporter David Santendry, with a look at some of these raids that were conducted this weekend in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. David joins me. David, good to see you here. What more do we know?
Yeah, Andrew, well, ICE maintains that these are targeted operations seeking criminals. We know dozens of people already have been arrested here in North Texas, and of course those numbers that you showed show many more people across the country. Fox 4 spotting a group of handcuffed and shackled men being transported into a van at U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement's Dallas field office Monday afternoon. It's where 84 people who were arrested on Sunday were taken for processing, according to a Homeland Security spokesperson who says the arrests were for various reasons, from drug charges to overstaying visas. The regional agency is not revealing future plans, but says arrests were primarily made in Dallas, Irving, Arlington, Fort Worth, Garland, and Collin County.
I don't think we arrested any families.
Trump administration border czar Tom Homan maintains the agency is arresting threats to public safety and national security.
I highly doubt that you'll see the grandmother or the child that everybody's worried about being arrested. They may be, but it'll be very, very few cases. The government doesn't want to do that, first of all, and second of all, they don't want to get tied up.
Retired Homeland Security Special Agent A.J. Irwin tells Fox 4 some recently arrested may have been on Homeland Security's radar for several months or even years, but investigators may not have been allowed to move forward with specific arrests during the previous administration.
They already know who these people are. They've been collecting this evidence for a while, so they're targeting people. They're not just doing what we used to do in the old days, where you just go out and raid, certain areas of a city that might have notoriously have a bunch of illegal aliens living in it. No, they're not doing that. It's all targeted.
On Sunday, ICE reported 956 arrests. That's more than triple last year's daily average of 310 non-citizen arrests. Ultimately, the Trump administration wants to increase the daily number of arrests to between at least 1,200 to 1,500 people, according to a Washington Post report.
I know we arrested 2 illegal aliens that had murder convictions that were walking the street. We arrested at least 7 sexual predators, mostly child predators.
Hundreds in Dallas protested the illegal immigration policy on Sunday. The Trump administration says it will allow federal immigration agencies to make arrests at schools, churches, and hospitals, ending a policy that had been in effect since 2011. Homeland Security says criminals will no longer be able to hide in America's schools and churches to avoid arrest. Adding, however, officers need to continue using discretion and a healthy dose of common sense around sensitive locations. As of now, it does not appear arrests have happened at those types of locations. And because schools are just such a talker right now, people wondering if there's any arrests that are going to be happening at schools, we reached out to Dallas ISD and Fort Worth ISD in our viewing area to see if they'll talk to us. I know there were some mandatory
Hey everybody, it's Tony Robbins. Listen, I'm on my way to the studio and the sun is setting on an opportunity and I don't want you to miss out. I don't know.
Well, new video shows deportation flights to Colombia are back underway. More than 200 deportees arrived today in the capital city of Bogota, where Colombia's president welcomed them, saying they're now free and in a country that loves them. It makes you wonder why he initially rejected U.S.-flown deportation flights just 2 days ago, and only agreed to accept them after President Trump threatened a trade war. Results like this are why the president calls his border action a major win for the U.S.
And very importantly, America is respected again. We're respected again. Isn't that nice? You know, after years of laughing at us like we're stupid people. And as you saw yesterday, we've made it clear to every country that they will be taking back our people that we're sending out, the criminals, the illegal aliens coming from their countries. We're taking them back, and they're going to take them back fast. And if they don't, they'll pay a very high economic price, and we're going to immediately install massive tariffs. It'll be placed on them and other sanctions.
In the meantime, federal agents began their first major illegal immigration raids here in New York City. Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem joined those agents on the raids, posting this video you're looking at now from the front lines, showing ICE agents removing illegal immigrants that have been charged with kidnapping, assault, and burglary. President Trump making no apologies for following through on that campaign promise.
We're tracking down the illegal alien criminals. We're detaining them, and we are throwing them the hell out of our country. We have no apologies, and we're moving forward very fast.
And the no-nonsense message his administration is sending already seems to be working. Listen to this. Border agents are reporting shockingly low numbers of illegal crossing guys, a nearly 95% drop from the height of the border crisis under Biden to the first days of Trump's presidency after just 1 week. Trump spoke about this sudden drop.
I got a call from Tom Homan and some of the people. They said, sir, it's unbelievable. There is nobody. You have this huge area. It's a gathering area. It's always been packed with these people. What they did to our country is so unbelievable. That they could do this to our country is so horrible. But he said there's nobody there. And then they actually put it on television. I got to see it. And there was literally not one person in this vast area where people stay there all day long and they just walk right into our country.
And as predicted, not everyone is happy about this illegal immigration crackdown. The View is calling it, of course, racist.
I think there's a very clear message as to what this president wants the look of a criminal migrant to look like, what an undocumented migrant. And I think that's racist. Let me also say, they are also racially profiling in doing this. I am disappointed, disgusted, and saddened by what I'm seeing.
And pop star Selena Gomez posting this video of her sobbing over the deportation flights, which she quickly deleted.
Only people are getting attacked. The children. I don't understand. I'm so sorry. I wish I could do something, but I can't. I don't know what to do. I'll try everything, I promise.
Border czar Tom Homan had a blunt response to the celeb's video yesterday.
We're going to do this job, and we're going to enforce the laws of this country. If they don't like it, then go to Congress and change the law. It's just all for the good of this nation, and we're going to keep going. No apologies. We're moving forward.
Yeah, and where were those tears when these guys were denouncing sanctuary cities and removing illegal border crossings?
Would you allow these cities to ignore the federal law regarding the reporting of illegal immigrants and, in fact, provide sanctuary to these immigrants?
Pick up the New York Times today. There's a city not far across the river from my state that imposed the similar sanctions. And what they found out is, as a consequence of that, their city went in the dumps, in the dumpster. Stores started closing. Everything started to happen. And they changed the policy.
So, Senator Biden, yes or no, would you allow the cities to ignore the federal law?
No.
If you're a criminal, you'll be deported. If you plan to enter the U.S. illegally, your chances of getting caught and sent back just went up.
Watch how coconut oil affects belly fat. Is coconut oil a superfood or unhealthy slug? The answer is both, depending on how you're using it. See, coconut oil is packed with MCTs that give you the gut-boosting weight loss benefits of a keto diet without the extreme diet. It's a phenomenal way to help slim down without cutting carbs or anything from your diet. But here's the secret. Coconut oil is okay, but it's not the best way to get your MCTs. Think about it. Why can some people eat nearly anything and not gain a pound, while others gain and lose weight like a yo-yo? Why do some people accumulate fat right around their bellies, while others store it around their butt and thighs? It's all tied to your metabolic type. That's also why some of us who think we're eating and living healthy often stubborn extra pounds. Heck, I was one of them for years. I was 70 pounds overweight, even though I felt like all I ever ate was salad. Now I know I was doing all the wrong things for my metabolic type. And once you know your metabolic type, you can get keto diet slimming power without the restrictive diet. All it takes is adding the right specific fat type to your diet to flip the switch on your body's fat burning power. If you want to find out your type, I put together a short quiz where you can find out. You don't need to put in your email or anything like that. Just answer a few simple questions and I'll share your results right away. So you'll possess the hidden key to your unique weight management strategy instantly. In fact, once you unlock your metabolic profile, I'll also show you exactly how to tweak one tiny thing about your diet to help you slim down in record time. Just take the quiz to get started.
From hard hats to steel-toed boots, Grainger's got your safety needs covered, literally.
Oh, Paul Morrow, so much to unpack here.
Oh, man. So what changed? I got to wonder, what changed? I mean, these are all the same people who were saying they were going to crack down. All of a sudden, they weren't, right? Let's advance the story a little bit. First of all, very clearly, they came in hot on this issue, and there's a controlling mind. It's organized. Full disclosure, about 6 months, I had occasion to have a conversation with Tom Homan. He told me then, I was trying to tease out of him, what's the plan? He told me there is a plan, I'm not telling you. Very clearly, there's a plan, right? They're doing the press right. They're putting out who they're grabbing. They got my buddy Derek Malton as the acting head of DEA. He's a hard charger. The whole thing's coming together. You can see it's synchronized. Here's the next shoe to drop. You and I were talking about this, Harris. While you're grabbing these guys and you're getting them out, the worst of the worst, 13, TDA, the cartels, you got to gather the intel. Behind all of this, the controlling minds are going to be the analysts. There are faceless people who we're never going to know who are heroes. They're sitting in cubicles, they're down in D.C., they're synchronizing all this information. They're the ones who are going to go through the phones, go through the social media, do the translations, and find the children.
That's right.
And they're talking about finding the 300,000 kids. It's not going to be the characters like me who are running around in the field. It's going to be these analysts who are going to be piecing together information and saying, this kid's MIA, where is this kid? Look at this, it turns up in this phone, we better look over here.
That's right. You and I had similar conversations with Tom Homan, so not all of it was, feathered out. I tracked down the numbers. The 80 to 85,000 where it started was from last June of 2024. We knew that from former Secretary of DHS Mayorkas. That's how many they thought they had. Then later in August, Josh Hawley, who is the senator of Missouri, said, no, the number's more like 291,000 undocumented missing children. We saw that balloon. And then what Homan and his team will have to do is go back now. And he said that would be phase two when he was on with me not long ago. Phase two would be going back through the information that I didn't know who was gathering it until you just said all that. But they've been working all this time, and that's how they're finding out where some of these kids are going to be. And then that's phase 2, go in and get those little ones. I mean, that is on our soul. We cannot let little ones be harmed in all of this. It's bad enough. We don't have them on enough of a grid to go get them day one. So they're working mightily now.
And that's why the crocodile tears, Kennedy, are so difficult to stomach and watch, as there was an immediate, phenomenal response to the synchronized and organized effort. Where were those tears about all of the children and the women who have been disproportionately affected, raped, kidnapped, assaulted, murdered by the historical statistics? Why has that crowd been quiet that entire time? Shouldn't they be the first ones to cheer this phenomenal result?
Why hasn't Selena Gomez been crying about femicide in some of those border towns? You know, why isn't she crying about 300,000 missing children who have been trafficked? Why doesn't that sadden Sunny Hostin? Like, why isn't she upset that people have been snatched from the countries where they're from, their parents have given these cartels everything, and then they're sexually trafficked and discarded? You know, where's the outrage for any of that? Because I think it's incredibly racist to lump everyone together and saying this big blob of Hispanic people, they're just here to do one thing. No, you've got half the people who are here to work and make this country better and have good lives for their families. And then you have the people who come in who have no regard for human life, who, you know, set people on fire and terrorize cities. So those are two vastly different groups of people, but lumping them in together as though protecting the bad guys breaks your heart, very disingenuous.
Yeah, and that is what you're seeing on the ground here in New York City with Kristi Noem here on the ground, early hours, 4 o'clock this morning, she was with all those agents. Yep. Because this is what the taxpayers and the voters right here in this sanctuary city of New York said. You know, the Lower East Side, by the way, you know, they actually voted for President Trump over Kamala Harris back in November. Look at the data. These are the hardworking people in the Bronx, in Queens, in parts of Manhattan that have had their lives upended by the criminal gang elements that have taken over certain sections of New York City. And those are the ones that Tom Homan is targeting, rightly so. As for the media reaction and the crying celebrities that we're now seeing, which I didn't understand half of what she said, but I will tell you what, she's uneducated. Because the average working person in the Bronx who is paying for their taxes was sick of seeing not only the wealth transfer go to the immigrants and the hotels and all the food they throw away, and that is a city story, not necessarily a federal story, but they also were tired of being threatened and attacked and afraid in their own homes. What do you want? You want safety. And that's what these people are. And these are hard-working immigrants in the city of New York that have said, we're done. And I'll tell you what, a lot of our local officials have been pretty darn quiet because they read the political room here.
Yeah. Well, they also know how the laws work. So they know which laws have been broken and which laws have been bent and how American citizens do not profit.
Even politically, it's a loser because it's women that get targeted.
That's
you never
right.
hear that.
Yep. The rape statistics in New York, I'll just leave it there.
Got here, Reverend. We got 30,000, 3 million credit, 3 million something already. A lot of credit. Wish we had some bigger sizzles. A lot bigger sigils. Okay. Let's see. I ain't gonna put anything on this Rhode Island. The last one. Let's go ahead and try the Rhode Island. Wait a minute. I was okay, other than that, he's good. Okay, bros. Oh, this is about Kennedy, man.
If a man really hated ads, here's what he would do. Day one, he would install Pi on his computer without spending a dime because it's 100% free.
At 1:25, the motorcade moves into the downtown area. Death is 6 minutes away. In a warehouse, a sniper with a rifle poised waits.
This is the president was assassinated, and then the assassin got assassinated. It's like, how the hell do we not know what actually happened?
Organized crime helped silence the CIA on Lee Harvey Oswald.
It was inadequate work on the part of the CIA and the FBI in terms of following up on Oswald.
I just remember my father saying, don't feel bad about these guys, were rats, they double-crossed us. People in the mob hated Kennedys.
You actually went to the Dallas Book Depository and you tried to make the shot yourself, and you concluded it wasn't an impossible shot.
Nobody wants to believe that something of that magnitude could take place with one person. It has to be a bigger story. Regardless of what is in this next release of documentation, I don't know that it's going to end up satisfying a lot of people.
Well, amongst the blitz of executive orders unleashed by President Trump during his first week in power, one particular decree caught the eye of conspiracy theorists everywhere.
An executive order ordering the declassification of files relating to the assassinations of President John F. Kennedy, Senator Robert F. Kennedy, and the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.
That's a big one, huh? A lot of people are waiting for this for years. For decades. Everything will be revealed.
About now.
Okay.
I say it's deep.
Enemy force detected.
Deep, I say
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Well, the official narrative surrounding the assassinations of JFK, RFK, and Martin Luther King, namely that all three were killed by lone gunmen, have long been questioned by those who suspect wider involvement. That includes the man many say has been the catalyst for Trump's dramatic declassification edict, RFK Jr. Well, here's how he reacted to the news of the executive order.
Do you think that that's the right move to declassify those?
I think it's a great move because we need to have more transparency in our government, and he's keeping his promise to have the government tell the truth to the American people about everything.
Well, I'm joined to debate all this by my three guests, each with their own unique perspective on what these declassified documents could reveal. Jefferson Morley is a journalist and historian. He's written extensively about the JFK assassination and the CIA. Michael Francis, once a capo in the Colombo crime family, thinks the mob played a critical role in killing Kennedy. And the former CIA officer Mike Baker, who says he's not a conspiracy guy and that Oswald could have made the shot on his own. Well, welcome to all of you. Let me start with you, if I may, Jefferson. You've written a lot about this. Your belief is that the most likely theory, and we may discover more meat on this theory bone, is that JFK was killed by enemies within the United States government. And by that, do you mean the CIA?
We destroyed an enemy cruiser.
The CIA and the Pentagon. That's what the preponderance of evidence that's come out in the last 20 years tells them.
So explain to those who are not as expert as you are, just explain, Jefferson, to those who are not as read as much as you had, but what are the key things that have emerged in the last 20 years that have led you to that conclusion?
Three things. One is the testimony of the doctors who tried to save Kennedy's life. These 7 doctors didn't really talk publicly until they got together in 2011, 2010. And their views are expressed on an excellent documentary called What the Doctors Saw. And those doctors who tried to save Kennedy's life, who examined his wounds in 30 minutes before he died, said unanimously that Kennedy had been hit by gunfire from 2 different directions. So right there, that is powerful refutation of the government's already long gun theory. A second thing that I think is very important, and we only learned in 2017, the CIA itself did not believe the lone gunman theory. A few days after Kennedy was assassinated, the CIA station in Miami launched its own internal investigation. Instead, they did not investigate Lee Harvey Oswald. They did not investigate organized crime. They didn't investigate the KGB. They didn't investigate Fidel Castro. They didn't investigate the aliens who were flying those drones over New Jersey. They investigated exiles known to the CIA in South Florida. And that report, the findings of that internal investigation, were never released. And finally, in April 2023, the CIA's pre-assassination file on Lee Harvey Oswald was completely declassified for the first time. Imagine that. The so-called lone gunman, his file was so sensitive that it took 61 years to totally declassify it. What does that file show us? It's not a smoking gun, but it does show that Oswald was not, repeat, not a lone nut. He was a known quantity, known to a handful of CIA officers working for counterintelligence chief James Angleton. So, with that as the fact pattern that we now have, that the Warren Commission's conclusion is not correct and something else happened, I think what we're going to find out is in these files that to come, we're going to see more of the fact pattern that has emerged in the next couple of years. That the Warren Commission is wrong and something else happened, probably involving people in the U.S. government.
Yeah, I've heard that.
It's interesting because, Mike Baker, you are a former CIA officer. When you hear these theories that maybe there's an inside job by the US, maybe the CIA were involved, do you think that's even remotely feasible?
Well, look, never say never, right? And one thing I've learned in 40 years of investigations and operations is, until you've got all the evidence in front of you, you can't rule anything out, right? I mean, that's good common sense. I have a feeling that once they
This one easy mistake will cost you thousands when buying a used car.
Did you know release the remaining documents? And I think people should understand that a vast majority of the documents have already been released, right? So we're not talking about a lot of records here, right? And my concern is that there won't be a smoking gun, as we just mentioned, but I think that it won't stop
Engine boost deactivated.
A variety of the conspiracy theories. I think it's going to be an unsatisfactory release, is what I guess I'm saying here. I think what it will show is what was just pointed out was, yes, Lee Harvey Oswald was a known quantity for a reason, for a counterintelligence reason, right? He had moved over to the Soviet Union. He had lived there in an unsatisfactory manner in his mind for some time. He had traveled down to Mexico weeks before the assassination to meet with the Cuban consulate. He was desperate to prove his value to the revolution. Right? So yes, he was known. And I think what the release of the documents may show, as opposed to a smoking gun and satisfy all the various conspiracy theories, is that it was inadequate work on the part of the CIA and the FBI in terms of following up on Lee Harvey Oswald.
Michael, let me ask you a question as a CIA officer. The director of counterintelligence of the CIA knew that Lee Harvey Oswald was in Texas in early November 1963. Is that an intelligence failure in your mind? Was Kennedy's assassination
that's what I mean. I think what we'll see is
that's what we've already.
It's apples and oranges, but somewhat akin to what we saw in 9/11, a failure to coordinate across the board. Right? So the FBI,
the CIA doesn't say that, by the way.
What's that?
The CIA, by the way, and no investigative body has ever said that. What the investigative bodies were told was, and I quote Director Richard Helms under oath, we only had minimal information about him. Is 180 pages of material on Lee Harvey Oswald minimal?
Yeah, look, again, from a counterintelligence perspective...
No, it's not. I mean, it's plainly not.
I know. We're going to have a conversation here where one of us only talks at a time.
Yeah, okay.
But, I mean, my point is, from a counterintelligence perspective, Lee Harvey Oswald is exactly the sort of person that the agency and the Bureau should have been focused on, right? And so what I'm saying
should
is...
Should they have lied to the Warren Commission about that?
Yeah, may well show that that was not being done, and I think it could be embarrassing to the government, and may well have been the reason why in 2017, during Trump's first term, some of the material was kept classified.
Okay, but Mike Baker, before I go to Michael Francis for the mob side of this in terms of theories, you actually went to the Dallas Book Depository, didn't you? And you tried to make the shot yourself, and you concluded it wasn't an impossible shot. In other words, it was possible that the theory that Lee Harvey Oswald just fired this bullet that went through two people was what happened.
Yeah, look, the point being is that the shot itself was not a typical shot. Right? There was no wind. It was moving in a straight line. He had recce'd the location ahead of time. From a operational perspective, and he had sufficient training as a Marine. It's not hard to say, okay, oh my God, there's no way this guy could have made the shot. So my point is, he could have made this shot. Again, I go back to the same thing. It's like with MLK, Martin Luther King, which I think is definitely an investigation that needs to be dug into much harder, right? You can never say never until you have all the evidence in front of you. So I'm not drawing a line under this and saying we know for a fact what happened. I'm just saying that the release of the remaining documents will probably not be a satisfying experience.
Right, I think you may be right. Let's bring in Michael Francis, who's been waiting very patiently. I want to tee you up, Michael, by playing a clip. This is RFK Jr.'s daughter-in-law, who is come out and said this to Tucker Carlson. Let's take a look.
And I feel something of a responsibility to get to the bottom of that, at least in my lifetime, for my children. You know, I mean, my daughter Bobcat is Bobby the Fourth, so her great-grandfather was RFK, and I want to be able to look at her and for her to know whether or not her own government was involved in these assassinations, and if so, what's been done about it to make sure that that never ever happens again, that there's never a coup like that in this country again. And I think when you look at the collaboration that was going on in those days between the intelligence community and organized crime and the mob, you know, there were very blurry boundaries.
Michael, you know, you said if you believe Lee Harvey Oswald acted alone, then you believe in Santa Claus. One of the big theories, of course, is that both the Kennedy brothers were, you know, thick as thieves with a lot of the mob, and that this was not a connection that should be ruled out. Explain why you think this might be one of the theories, and it may be we get more information about that if these files get released.
Well, Pierce, I can only tell you what I've heard my entire life, and that was from the time Kennedy got killed. You know, people in the mob hated Kennedys, you know, and normally guys in the mob don't want to take credit for things like this. They'd rather not talk about it. Not the thugs, I mean the people in charge. People like Carmine Persico, who was the boss of the Colombo family, Tony Salerno, boss of the Genovese family, and my father, who was very high up at the time. You know, it goes back, I was 12 years old when Kennedy got killed, and I just remember my father saying things to my mother, don't feel bad about these guys were rats, they double-crossed us, and so on and so forth. Cut to the time that I was in the life, and, you know, I heard consistently from Persico, from Tony, from my father, that what I believe it came down is that the CIA had come to, they said the CIA, people in government who were part of this assassination plot with the Kennedys, came to us afterwards and asked that Oswald be killed. Jack Ruby, I don't know why people deny that he wasn't mobbed up. He was totally mobbed up. You know, from the time he was in Chicago, he had relationships with Sam Giancana. He had relationships with Joe Campisi, who was really the boss of Dallas, who was very close with Carlos Marcello in New Orleans. And he also had cops on his payroll. He was able to get entry into Oswald. And I will tell you this, what I also heard is this, again, these people don't brag about things like this. They're talking matter of fact. You know, the fact that allegedly, what I was told, they had a deal with Joe Kennedy, who I know was definitely in touch with and had relationships with Frank Costello during his bootlegging days. There's no question about that. People can deny it, they can, but I've heard that my entire life too. And that guys in Chicago were instrumental in helping many of the labor unions, you know, vote for the Democrats. Now, Chicago's a mob-run city. You know, it always was, you know, from the days of Capone on forward. And the mob played a part in helping deliver. And that was a very tight election between Kennedy and Nixon. And the deal was that the heat was supposed to be off.
Autopilot mode
What I heard
enabled.
afterwards, Robert Kennedy, whom my father hated, my father believes Robert Kennedy was the one that really pursued him, put him away for 50 years, that the Justice Department was supposed to back off us, and instead they went on even harder. And so if I had to take a lie detector and swear to it, what I've heard my entire life from people in the know, there was definitely mob involvement in that. Jack Ruby was definitely hooked up with us. And look, that wasn't the first time the CIA came to us. I mean, they did it, you know, they tried to assassinate, what's his name? Castro from Cuba. They went to Johnny Rosella and Sam Giancana. And what about, you know, during World War II, when they went to Lucky Luciano and Meyer Lansky to get the Allies into Sicily? So is it, you know, I don't believe that the United States government ever wants to get word out there that the mob had anything to do with assassinating a sitting president. So I don't know if it's ever going to be revealed, but if I had to swear to it, you know, it was a matter of life and death for me, based upon everything I heard from the right people, I'd have to say there's no doubt in my mind.
Fascinating. Jefferson, I saw you nodding to quite a lot of that. I mean, I don't think there's any doubt that the Kennedy family...
Michael's absolutely...
I was going to say that the Kennedy family had a lot of contact with the mob in varying ways, and there's no doubt that the general perceived wisdom is that they went back on a deal when JFK became president. They reneged on a deal to be more helpful to the mob, and in fact went the other way, and it ended up with Robert Kennedy really targeting them and going after them. So there was clearly a sense of betrayal there from members of the mob at the time. I think that is indisputable. Do you think it's a stretch to say that maybe they were behind all this?
I think Michael had it exactly right. The organized crime rule was to eliminate Oswald, the inconvenient witness, and they used their pawn, Jack Ruby, to do that. I don't think that organized crime organized the whole ambush in Dealey Plaza. That was a very sophisticated operation. In organized crime, when they decide to take somebody out, they don't shoot at a moving target in a public space. You know, they kill them behind doors or give them cement shoes.
Autopilot mode disabled.
The operation itself seems more sophisticated than an organized crime. But Michael's absolutely right about the organized crime role in the events of 1963. Organized crime helped silence the CIA pawn, Lee Harvey Oswald.
Mike Baker, let's take a look at the clip of Lee Harvey Oswald. This is after he was arrested.
I really don't know what the situation is about. Nobody has told me anything except that I'm accused of murdering a policeman. I know nothing more than that. I do request someone to come forward to give me a legal assistance.
Did you kill the president?
No, I have not been charged with that. In fact, nobody has said that to me yet.
You know what struck me, Mike?
Below the waterline.
Until recently, I was always of the view, how the hell do we not know more about this? How do we not know actually what happened? This is the United States of America. This is the president was assassinated, and then the assassin got assassinated. It's like, and then the president's brother and so on. How can these still be things that are unresolved? And then I saw what happened with Donald Trump, where he is the victim of an attempted assassination. He gets hit on the ear, he nearly dies. The guy is on a roof 150 yards away and he gets killed, so we'll never find out from him. But we still know so little about that young guy, right? We just don't know much about him at all. Motivation, why he did it, background, no social media. It was all just very odd. And it's all just kind of disappeared off the news radar. And so now I'm beginning to understand why we know really so little hard fact about what happened in '63, because even with all the powers we now have of the internet and all the rest of it, we're still none the wiser about what happened in the summer with Donald Trump.
No, that's right. And it's interesting. Not to disappear down an unrelated rabbit hole, but if you look at it, we're in two different times, right? Now, the flow of information now in present times, access to information, everybody's got a smartphone, you know, media's playing beat the clock against anybody who's got a smartphone who thinks they're a journalist. So you would imagine that information would have flown much quicker, and there would be more transparency after the incident with Donald Trump, the first incident with Donald Trump.
They still haven't
and, you know, previously with JFK, with RFK, with MLK, Martin Luther King, that wasn't the case, right? And we had to wait for the evening news, and information flowed much slower. But it is remarkable after all this time. Look, you know, the commission in the congressional law in '92, you know, which said, you know, you have to release this information on JFK unless there's deemed to be some national security concern. You know, that was a 25-year hold. So 2017, it was, you know, Trump who then came in and said, well, okay, some of it's going to have to remain classified. That continues this burning desire on the public's part. And also from a conspiracy point of view, look, nobody wants to imagine that it was one person, right? And I'm not saying it was one person. Again, I haven't seen all the evidence. I was a toddler when this happened, and the CIA didn't hire me to do it, right? So, although that would have been a remarkable event. But what I'm saying is, it's one of those things where nobody wants to believe that something of that magnitude could take place with one person. It has to be a bigger story. Maybe it is, but I understand why conspiracy theories continue as they are, right? And this is a remarkable issue. If they don't release every document, and this is not an executive order that says you will now release the document, it says DOJ and the Director of National Intelligence have 15 days to decide a plan to release the material. They could still hold some of it back, right? But I think at this stage of the game, you know, there's no real sound argument for sources and methods or protection of individuals. Just release it, right? And again, it may be unsatisfactory. There may not be a smoking gun, but at least you're taking another step towards transparency.
Yeah, and of course, Jefferson Morley, I know that you said that some of the most important files are missing, probably destroyed. These include the official JFK autopsy report, which contradicts supposedly the lone gunman and single bullet theory, the recording of a phone call between Lyndon Johnson and J. Edgar Hoover on the morning of the assassination, the CIA files on Lee Harvey Oswald's Russia connections. These all seem very, very important, significant things, which if they have just been destroyed or disappeared for whatever reason, then this could end up being a bit of a damp squib. But that would then prompt the question, well, if it's a damp squib, why have you not just revealed all this before?
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, the law, you know, the law is very clear, and it was supposed to have been, it had a 2017 sunset provision. So the CIA has blown the deadline by 8 years. So naturally people are getting a little impatient. But I'll say this, you know, Piers, yes, a lot has been destroyed, but you can't understand what's going to come out in the next few weeks if you don't understand what's come out in the last few years. The pre-assassination Oswald file, what the doctors saw, the CIA's own internal investigation, and there are documents in the collection that apply directly to these matters that should be declassified. And I want to say this, you know, I've been at this a long time, and I have high expectations, but I also have hard experience. The CIA knows how to returning to ship. They know how to get a presidency here. They know how to make him defer to their will. It happened to Biden, it happened to Trump, and it could definitely happen again. What's key is that people understand we have a benchmark, a dozen documents. If we get all 12, Trump gets an A. If we get 9 out of the 12, Trump gets a B. If we get 6 out of the 12, we know how strong the CIA remains. It's not complicated. James Angleton's testimony to the Church Committee in 1975, 120-page document, heavily redacted. Angleton controlled the Oswald file from 1959 to 1963, so that document should be made public immediately. CIA surveillance operations in Mexico City that picked up on Oswald, the 77-page report on those, heavily redacted. That should be declassified. So this isn't a fishing expedition, and we're not looking for smoking guns. We're looking at the fact pattern that will establish that the government's account of the crime is not correct, and we need better explanation.
Ship is on fire.
Michael Francis, I mean, if I was an American Michael Francis, I mean, you have a right to know this stuff. I mean, this is This involves the assassination of one of your presidents, the assassination of potentially the next president in Bobby Kennedy, and then the assassination obviously of Martin Luther King as well. Got to that, but in terms of JFK in particular, the American people, I think, have a fundamental right to know this stuff.
Absolutely, Pearson. What I would like to see, if they deny the fact that Jack Ruby had mob connections. Because if they deny that, then I know this whole thing is a sham. Because he absolutely 100% mob connections his entire life, going back to Chicago. And then I think, Campisi, who was a very powerful mob guy in Dallas, he had, connections with all the strip clubs and the places that Ruby was involved in. Because you don't hear much about Jack Ruby, that you see was some lone nut, If they lie about his connections, then that says it all to me. I wouldn't believe anything that came out of that from that point on, because he was definitely connected to us.
But let me ask you, Michael, with the mob theory, Michael, it's such a big thing to do, whoever you are, to be involved in the assassination of an American president. You were in the mob a long time at a pretty high level. Could you ever countenance the idea that that would happen, that you would have the mob in any way, any one of the families being directly complicit in the involved assassination of a president?
The answer to me is yes, because, it was during that time, I always say this, Pierce, the golden years of the mob in the United States was really from the late 40s, mid-40s, right through to the mid-80s when Giuliani went wild with the RICO Act and put a lot of damage in. We had a lot of power at that time. You're talking about, 50, 60, 70. We had a lot of power. And, Sam Giancana, very powerful guy. Carlos Marcelli, all the 5 families in New York. We had power and connections, and it's not inconceivable. Again, the CIA, I think it's a matter of fact that they came to us on 2 occasions. And why would they not come to us at this point in time, too? We had the ability. And look, Jack Ruby had the connections. He had a lot of connections with the police department. He was able to get into that area that night. I don't know if they questioned him. I mean, the guy had a gun on him. How did he get in there at that point in time? Look, it's absolutely not out of the question. And like I said, Pierce, if you had to give me a lie detector test and my life depended on it, everything that I've heard points to mob involvement in that. And again, I want to, reiterate what this other gentleman said. I'm not saying we were involved from day one, but I know that we hated the Kennedys. There was no question about that. As a matter of fact, I think there was one, Sam Giancana was caught on tape saying we killed the wrong Kennedy, because it was really Bobby, from what I understand, that went against Joe Kennedy and John Kennedy and still continued going after the mob when he was supposed to back off. And I heard that there was some kind of discussion about that Frank Sinatra came back and told Giancana they can't control Bobby. I heard that also. No, there was a lot of stuff pointing to the fact, but I'm telling you that the key is here, if they deny that Jack Ruby was not all mobbed off and had mob connections, this whole thing is false.
Fascinating. And finally, Mike Baker, I mean, the problem is we live in a conspiracy-fueled era now where the social media in particular makes a conspiracy theory out of everything, right? I mean, there's just nothing that can happen now without immediately absurd, crazy theories. From a CIA point of view, is that a good or bad thing? Does it help mask, some pretty secret, covert activity? Does it muddy waters? Does it get in the way? What do you feel about the sort of ongoing tsunami of conspiracy theories?
Yeah, look, it's that's a complex question. There's an upside and a downside to it, right? In terms of, if you, from an operational perspective, if you've got a lot of noise that you've created out there and a lot of different, dead ends that people can run down, then yes, it could benefit you from an operational perspective. That's why you have covert action campaigns, propaganda campaigns, disinformation campaigns, misinformation campaigns, right? Because it can be beneficial from an operational standpoint, right? That's why any intelligence service, it's got the resources and the motivation, engages in that sort of behavior as well. So again, it's, we live in a time where, do you have more conspiracy theories now than ever before? Well, yes, you do, because of the speed of information and the access to information that people have in general. But the JFK situation, I have this feeling, call me cynical, But I've looked at it a lot. I've looked at the MLK again. I would like to make a final pitch that Martin Luther King.
Yeah, I say King's gonna be out there when they do that, bro. That's
Subscribe to get the news the legacy media won't tell you and only the Daily Signal can bring to you.
When I heard FBI, the first thought that came to my mind was, you have got to be kidding me. No way this is happening. Like, I'm not wearing any of the flat jacket or the military style helmets that some of the other guys were wearing. I was just a guy, a MAGA hat on. And I was really shocked when I opened a door. We had 2 agents turn their guns right at me. And all I could say, because my dog was, freaking out, was, please don't shoot my dog.
Siakamasakwa, welcome to Daily Signal. Thank you so much for being here. So we're here to talk about your experience at the Capitol on January 6th of 2021. But first, I want to get a little bit of your background. So you were the first vice chair of the Los Angeles Republican Party. Yep. And you're also a writer and actor for the Babylon Bee.
Yeah. Well, writer and actor in a general sense, but I've worked with the Babylon Bee. I currently work with Daily Wire now. Been in Hollywood up until September, was almost 20 years in Hollywood as a working actor. Then got involved. Actually got involved in politics more because of what happened at January 6th. So it got me more involved. I ran for local office in 22 and then became the vice chair of the largest county in the country in 23.
So what brought you to the Capitol on January 6th?
Well, a plane. No. There was it was the third time I was there. The first time I went was for a Blexit event that Candace Owens' organization, and when she was a part of it at the time. And then after that, I went after the first MAGA rally there, and it was amazing. And so the third time what was going there was I wanted to be a part of history. I thought it was going to be a historical day. I didn't realize what type of history, but I definitely knew it was going to be historical, and I wanted to capture with my phone as much of that history as possible.
What did you experience outside of the Capitol before people entered the Capitol?
So I got there an hour after everything went down. So all the footage of people fighting with cops and the cops, shooting tear gas and the rotunda thing, I got there after all that. So when I got there, people were kind of hanging around. And mind you, I think one of the biggest misconceptions, because how TV can put things together and editing can work, is the violence didn't happen all over. A lot of that stuff happened in little pockets. So when I went there and I was walking around, I got interviewed when I was standing by a scaffold. I ran into some friends from Beverly Hills. I walked around and saw people were just kind of meandering around. People were just kind of floating around. It wasn't like a big, the fights going on or anything like that. I did see where I thought was weird were 2 guys in separate locations trying to push other men to go forward. That I did see, which was really weird. And then for me, I was walking in. I went to the west side as I was checking in. I actually even said out loud, I was like, "Hey, is this where they're letting people in?" Yep. And people were going into this doorway, much like you would go into a college football game or going to some type of musical festival where everyone's just kind of funneling into one area, doing a slow walk because it's so packed. I get to the threshold. I take about 2-3 steps in, and then we're stopped because there was a cop there, and then another one, and everyone's just kind of stopped in the area. As I'm recording, I actually see there's maybe 12 to 18 cops just standing against the wall, hanging out. So again, there was no real sense of this was Pearl Harbor or 9/11, as some Democrats try to say. And so I started, use my phone, and I started to capture as much as I could standing in this doorway. And then a riot cop, the guy or a cop in riot gear, comes up and he said, "I need you guys to go back the other way now." And I was like, "Okay, we're going to do it. We're being reasonable." I turned back around and tell the people behind me, "Hey guys, we got to go back the other way," and left. That was pretty much it. And walked around a little bit, recorded some more, and walked back to my hotel.
Why did you decide to enter the Capitol?
I was curious. I was just curious, like everyone else. We're going. It was more like let's see what's going on, what's happening. And again, just like I told you in the story, no cop, even the cop that I talked to, who we subpoenaed to if we were going to have to go to trial, who was going to come in and be part of my defense, no one that I talked to outside of that one cop told us anything about leaving. So again, and by the time I got there, it was an hour after any of the stuff happens, an hour after Ashley Babbitt was shot, an hour after the tear gas. So as I'm meandering in with everyone else, and I even turned to talk to one of the cops that I was joking. I was like, I heard they got on, in Nancy Pelosi's office. Is that true? And he's like, I don't know. And at no time until that other guy comes did anyone, even with the cops standing against the wall, there was at no point did anyone say, hey, you guys should be here or leave or anything. And the only time given directive, not only did I follow, but I also repeated it back to the people behind me.
So what followed immediately after you left the Capitol?
It was kind of funny. So I'm walking away from the Capitol and I look over to my right and I see cars just kind of parked, not even touched. And I jokingly said out loud to just people walking back the other way, I'm like, if this was a BLM riot, all those cars would be burning right now. And everyone kind of chuckled about that. And I went back to my hotel room, left the next day to go back to Los Angeles where I was living at the time, and thought nothing of it. I started seeing raids happening where people were getting raided. I actually thought, that's probably some people that broke the glass and maybe fought some cops. I knew I was okay. Like, I recorded a video as I was leaving. I was like, this is the people's house. They would let us in. That was my understanding at the time. I didn't know people were even let in. So for me, I was like, they wouldn't let us in. They kicked us out of the house, which in one moment was like, when the guy said get out, that's what I was in a sense, bothered by. So then, I saw people get raided and didn't think I was going to be on the list because I didn't touch anybody. I, complied with police when police even gave me a directive. And then June 10th of 21, I got raided. My house got raided by the FBI.
So that was the first time you were contacted by law enforcement regarding your presence at the Capitol?
Yep, was a raid to my house and 15 agents and guns drawn and everything. It was crazy.
So what transpired and what was going through your head as you were talking to law enforcement?
Well, when I heard, because my room was at the end of the hallway of the house that I was living at the time, and when I heard FBI, the first thought that came to my mind was, you have got to be kidding me. Like, no way this is happening. I was I'm not wearing any of the flat jacket or the military style helmets that some of the other guys were wearing. I was just a guy, a MAGA hat on. And I was really shocked when I opened a door. We had two agents turn their guns right at me. And all I could say, because my dog was, freaking out, was, please don't shoot my dog. And so when they grabbed me and they cuffed me to go outside, I didn't see any of my other roommates, which was my best friend, my two godsons, who were 3 and 6 at the time, were there. I saw Bryson, the youngest one, being put in a car by a female agent. Cars were all out my street. I'm cuffed. The guy's like, I was like, let me see the warrant. He's like, this isn't an arrest. This isn't an arrest. It's just a search warrant. I'm like, well, I need to talk to my lawyer. He goes, that's not what it is. I'm like, well, let me see the warrant. He goes, you will get it to you after we clear the house. And I'm just thinking to myself, I can't believe this is happening. And because I know I didn't do anything that would warrant raid and armed U.S. agents at my house. Like, it just didn't. It was very confusing. It was very it didn't match what anything that I did, let alone to a level like that. Like, it just didn't match. I was just really confused and frustrated at the same time.
So, what did they do? What followed?
Well, they took me outside. They were inside, I guess, clearing the house, as they said. As we went inside, then they took me to my back patio to question. The other agents were pulling stuff out of the room, stuff that I still haven't gotten back to this day. So at this point, it's going to go on 4 years. I haven't gotten never charged at the time and wasn't arrested. It's just a search warrant, as they said. It took my computer, my cell phone, my flash drives, my external hard drives, my journals that I used when I was in program. It's just like, and my MAGA hat that I mentioned earlier. So they took all those things because they're like, oh, well, the MAGA hat, we saw you on CCTV, that's where you have to take it. It's like, I don't understand how that's evidence, but it is what it is. And so I was just when I was talking to him, I was expressing how confused and how frustrating this is, that this isn't America. My family comes from a place where my grandfather was killed by disagreeing with the people in power there. So that's the country I come from. And to come to America and now seeing, because you disagree with the current group that was in charge, that they will come to your house, knowing you didn't do anything violent with guns in your face like that, you know, Reeves, that just, no one can truly get it unless they're in there. And to know that they're able to muster that type of force against you is really disheartening and extremely frightening.
Yeah, very frightening. So you were later arrested, correct, and charged. What was that situation like? How did that happen?
Well, so that was 3 years after the raid. And in between those 3 years, I was on a no-flight list, or terror flight list, I don't know how you call it. So I was being harassed every time I flew. In that instance where I got arrested on November 30th of 23, I was actually coming back I was in the movie Lady Ballers for Daily Wire, and I'm coming back. My wife and I, she's 7 months pregnant, we're coming back to Los Angeles. We land in Burbank Airport, which is a smaller airport, so to get off the plane, we're going to have to walk on a tarmac to the inside of the building. And as I step foot on a tarmac, as soon as I step foot, 4 agents, boom, Siak mask, what? Yep, you're under arrest. You're coming with us. We're taking you for events of January 6th. You know, and I'm just, again, I'm taken aback because up at this point, they know where I'm at. They could have easily called me. I would have turned myself in if that was the case. They made a spectacle, right? And I kept saying over and over, because they took me and they wouldn't tell me initially what my charges were. I'm like, first I was like, why are you arresting me? And they go, you know why? I go, no, you're going to tell me why you're taking me away from my wife right now. And then some guy shouted, January 6th. I'm like, I didn't do anything. And then they're like, well, you're going to have to come with us tonight. We're trying not to embarrass you. I'm like, it's too late. You did it on the tarmac where everyone's getting off the plane. It's already embarrassing now, you know, by only God's grace. And thank God we planned this before, but Charlotte didn't have to go by herself. We had family friends coming to pick us up, and no one. And at the situation, she wasn't left alone that whole night or the next day, because, you know, think of a 7-month pregnant woman, her husband just taken away by the U.S. government. If she's by herself, her head's spinning, and what does that do to the baby? I know first stories of a lot of people who going through January 6th got miscarriages because of the stress that was going on with the government on top of it. They wouldn't tell me what my charges were until we got to the jail. In the car, when I'm just berating them about how they could have called me, they know where I lived. I literally sued the government for raiding my house. So they have all the information on me. And if they were going to sit there and charge me, they could have easily called me. I'm like, you know where I was vice chair. The agent sitting next to me said, well, we didn't want you to be prepared. So they did it like this on purpose to want me to basically caught me with my pants down, if you will. So we didn't have any way to be ready to just walk in. And they let other people, mind you, turn themselves in. But they didn't let me turn myself in. And they came at me with this full force. And when we got to the jail, I found out that I was charged with 4 misdemeanors. So a raid on my house, 3 years of harassment every time I flew, and then ripped away from my wife and an arrest on a tarmac for misdemeanors.
How long were you in their custody for?
Only the 24 hours. I just spent the night. The next day, at the bond hearing, the judge released me out of jail. So that was just wonderful. We got to go together the next day.
How do you think that your presence at the Capitol has affected your personal and professional life?
Well, it definitely has affected in both ways. You know, I was in Hollywood for a long time, and after that, when I was raided, the LA Times, the Daily Mail, the Chicago Tribune, because I grew up in the Midwest, everyone wrote about this, Netflix actor raided. So from a entertainment standpoint, from the liberal media, there was going to be little to any chance to salvage my career over there. But because I had started in 2020 to, in a sense, shift my focus over to what I really believe, because I had to hide a lot in plain sight, because I voted for Trump in 2016, and being around a lot of the Hollywood people. I watched people lose their minds over this guy. It was really insane. So in 2020, I started shifting over. I started like hanging out with more MAGA people, if you will. Then I started speaking more openly about my beliefs. So I was fortunate enough to connect with the guys from the Daily Wire, guys with Babylon Bee. So on that note, as I was losing this thing over here, I was gaining this world over here, which is like aligns more with what I believe in and wants to do projects and stories that connect with more of what I want to start to, put out into our culture and ultimately be able to share with my children as they get older. So, it's affected where I went from one side to the other, but, now I'm working directly with Daily Wire. And
that was my bad, bros. I'm sorry. I'm not going to make it, honest, bros. I don't think I am anyway. We almost got that one. Pretty close to that one. We might, though. We're going to push. We're going to push for it. I hope so. I don't know, bros. We'll just keep going, how we know. Sorry about that. Sorry, Mom, I didn't say otherwise. There we go. We got to. Okay. Let's do the I'm just trying to get in and go some decent points with them. Okay. Let's add this. Need the extra shelves, so maybe we can build those up too. What you doing, Opie? Huh? What you doing, Opie? Oh, let me see here, bros. Okay, I don't know what that. Oh.
Hi, I'm JT and I made Result Hunter, the search engine for conservatives. Let me just tell you what it does. First of all, big tech right now is run by a bunch of elitist people who all happen to vote the same way and who all happen to live in huge cities on the West Coast. And so Result Hunter takes those elitist values and elitist sources and kind of pushes them down a little bit in the search engine. Meanwhile, it takes those sources of truth that we believe have been deranked a little bit by Google, and it pushes those up a bit. And the main thing that you'll gain from using the search engine is that your ad revenue that you generate by going all over
Autopilot mode enabled.
Yeah, they raided the Bronx.
Let's shift gears to New York City as a Venezuelan migrant that was at the center of that viral moment in Aurora, Colorado during the apartment takeover has been busted in the Big Apple. And I want to put up a post from Kristi Noem, who was on the ground there in New York City, saying arresting some criminal aliens this morning in NYC. Thank you to the brave officers that have been involved as we are following it. The crackdown on this immigration and the arrests of numerous people, over 1,000 yesterday, including this wanted suspect there in New York. We were joined on the ground by Fox 5's Lisa Evers. Lisa, thank you so much for joining us here on Live Now from Fox. What can you tell us about what went down today?
Well, Andy, this is a very fast-moving situation, as you can imagine, and the developments are coming fast and furious. What happened here early this morning at the apartment building that you see right behind me is that a multi-agency task force, including NYPD Special Ops, arrested an individual wanted for very serious crimes in Colorado as well as here in New York that involved kidnapping, assault, gun charges, we're told, and many, many other charges. They went into the apartment, they brought him out, and this comes as Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem, who was on the ground right here on these very streets early this morning with the agents and the officers. She said this just a short time ago.
We do have some challenges, and the world is a dangerous place. And we've got dangerous, evil foreign governments that want to take us down. We will be the first line of defense for anybody that's in the American homeland.
Now, the Homeland Security Secretary tweeted that she was live in New York as this heavily armed multi-agency task force executed the first round of takedowns of alleged criminal migrants for deportation. She says the criminal alien accused of kidnapping, assault, and burglary was removed from her first-floor apartment on Ogden Avenue in the High Bridge section of the Bronx early this morning. Signs of the forced entry were evident in the building, and especially at the doorways. Residents tell us that he was this suspect, one of 15 migrants who were squatters in a one-bedroom apartment that they took over and turned into what neighbors say was a noisy hub for criminal activity, including drug use and prostitution. Agents from the various federal agencies, including the DEA, participated, heavily armed and ready for any possible challenge. Here's what some of the neighbors told us.
I mean, I was planning on calling ICE, to be honest with you, so they got here before I was able to call them.
I don't think it's right that they just, taking people out of the comfort zone and just trying to place them back where they came from.
It's not that surprising me because the president just passed the law, so wherever they know there's something bad, they're just going to come from.
Now, law enforcement sources are telling me that this was just one of more than 20 targeted takedowns. They said these are very specific individuals that they're going after, and that ICE actually has lists of criminal suspects, people with their names, with what they've allegedly done or what they have been arrested for. Many of those, of course, in New York City were initially arrested by the NYPD. That's one of the reasons why Mayor Adams said, despite New York City being a sanctuary city, there's no sanctuary here for criminals. And that's why he instructed and directed the NYPD to work, as they have so many times in the past, through various task force with the federal agencies that are involved in this, of course, led by Homeland Security investigations. So we've also just learned just a short time ago, Andy, that these targeted arrests, they don't want to call them sweeps because they're very specific about which individuals they're going after, are already beginning in Westchester County. Warrants were issued for 2 individuals in a very small small town in Westchester County called Sleepy Hollow. So they know who they want, they know what they want them for, and they really are going after, apparently, from what we've been able to tell, after the worst of the worst, Andy. But that's the latest here from Ogden Avenue in what's called the High Bridge section of the Bronx. We're just up a hill from Yankee Stadium, but a lot going on here. And I would have to say most of the residents we talked with supported the activity because they don't understand how these people just moved in, took over that apartment, and basically turned it into a living hell for the residents that had to go past them and to their apartments that they were paying for day in and day out. Andy?
Yeah, that is a good report, and of course interesting when you look at it, because this was a member of that Tren de Aragua gang that Trump had mentioned time and time again on the campaign trail. And you mentioned that these are targeted crackdowns going after some of the worst migrants there that are potentially in this country illegally. Do people in New York pay attention to what's going on in Aurora, Colorado? Because that was such a big national story. Did the people there in the apartment complex potentially know that this individual was also involved in what happened in Colorado?
I don't think so, Andy, just from what we were able to talk with them about, but they were very shocked. You know, the pattern is similar. It's like you take over the apartment, you run whatever kind of criminal activities that you're running, and that they had so many people in there, and that this went on for months and months. One man we talked to, who we just showed you a couple of minutes ago, he said that he has a one-month-old or one-year-old baby. They would have to walk past these people. They were out in front smoking marijuana all day long, all night long, all kinds of activities going on. Young girls going in and out of a very questionable situation, and people had really had enough because this is a modest income, low income neighborhood. A lot of working people just really struggling to get by, pay their rent, feed their families, and try to get a leg up on the economic situation. So they were very upset that these people just basically moved in. You can see, wait, let me, Christian, can you show him the we can't really see here because it's kind of dark here, but the windows are covered with black plastic bags. That's the apartment that they were in. I mean, imagine 15 people in a one-bedroom apartment, Andy. It's pretty crazy.
Yeah, it is very crazy, and great reporting there as always. It's so very interesting to hear the perspectives of some of these neighbors and just what they are saying, as they were clearly upset that these individuals were there as well, and now they are gone after being busted there by ICE. All right, Lisa, thank you so much. Great reporting as always from New York.
Okay, thanks, Andy.
Got safety protocols? Grainger has the safety pros to call. Shop our vast inventory of safety products at Grainger.com. Call, click, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
All right, so this is a cabin. And look at that fjord. And this is the...
hurt because, you know, now I am basically out of luck for the rest of the month.
Millions of dollars are being stolen from Ohioans, and the federal government just stopped doing anything about it. We thank you for joining us today. For NBC4 at 5, I'm Jared Smalley.
I'm Colleen Marshall. People who rely on SNAP benefits, that's the program that used to be known as food stamps, are being targeted. And taxpayers are the victims, too.
Investigative reporter Isabel Cleary spoke to victims who are left helpless and hungry. Isabel?
Jared, Colleen, food stamp fraud has been around for a long time. What's different now is there's no longer help for people when it happens to them. Congress just stopped the program that reimburses people who have had their SNAP benefits stolen. And even if you don't rely on SNAP benefits, this impacts you because millions of government dollars are being stolen.
These are people who need these benefits to live.
Now, thousands are being targeted and having to find ways to survive without money they rely on for food.
Literally all I have to use. So when I went to the store the next day, it was all gone.
Caden Bickmeyer is 19. He went to the store to get some food for the day, but the card was declined.
It kind of hurt my feelings badly because that's all I had for that week.
He checked his account and heard this message.
A food assistance purchase in the amount of $220.95 was posted on January 7th.
The purchase made at a store in Massachusetts when Caden was in Columbus all day.
It happened in September.
Christopher Schwartzbeck also had his SNAP money stolen.
I had plans to go get meats, all the good stuff, and I checked my card at 6 in the morning and it was gone. As soon as it hit the account, it was gone by somebody in New York.
The same thing happened to Shadonna Collier.
I was embarrassed, for one, because I had had a bunch of groceries up at the register, and I was devastated.
Hours after their SNAP cards were funded for the month, their money was stolen.
They're being victimized because they can't, now they have no food. There's very limited resources right now, so it's just really frustrating.
This is happening around America. 4 investigates found in Ohio last year, nearly 27,000 people reported their SNAP benefits stolen. Almost $14 million of taxpayer money gone. Almost 7,000 of those victims were in Franklin County. More than $3 million stolen.
When I went to Job and Family Services, they had a specific line.
The federal government did reimburse Collier and Swartzbeck, whose benefits were stolen last year. But the 2025 American Relief Act does not include money to replace stolen SNAP benefits. Anyone impacted now, like Caden, won't get their money back.
And I had nothing left once I was gone.
Ohio Job and Family Services says the SNAP cards are outdated and an easy target for skimming. That means the card information can be stolen with a device or a code criminals put on machines you use to pay. Changing the card to add a chip could prevent fraud, but that change will need to come from Congress.
These people are a group, a population of vulnerable people who are hungry. They don't have time to wait months and months for something to go to the legislative branch, to go through every branch of government. This is an immediate need.
I reached out to Congresswoman Joyce Beatty's office. She sent me a statement blaming House Republicans, saying in part, quote, Congress must permanently reinstate this provision in the Farm Bill and continue supporting efforts to improve security for EBT cards so we can end SNAP skimming theft for good. I also reached out to Congressman Mike Carey. His team shared this is on their radar. There are a few ways to protect SNAP benefits, including locking and unlocking your card with every purchase. You can see how to do that on NBC4i.com. Colleen.
Wow, man. Oh. But an hour.
Good morning and welcome to Rising. We've got a great show for you today, so happy you tuned in. It is the first full day of the Trump administration. I was up pretty late last night doing various media-related things and catching up with the news. I imagine you were as well.
I was. It was a long night for me. I'm sure you're celebrating the first full day of the Trump administration now, Robbie.
I am in a celebratory mood. Yes.
Well, I don't know if that will be reflected in your radar or not, but Robbie, what's in your radar?
Yes, indeed. Well, here's something to discuss regarding Dr. Fauci. Now, just hours before leaving office, or in some cases, mere minutes, President Joe Biden made the shocking and appalling decision, in my view, to issue preemptive pardons to a large number of people, including his family members. We'll discuss that further a little bit later in the show. But I want to take a closer look right now at the preemptive pardon he issued to Dr. Anthony Fauci, the nation's top infectious disease specialist and chief advisor to both Presidents Trump and Biden during the COVID-19 pandemic. Now, the text of the pardon actually contains a very important hint about the real reason that Fauci is being protected. Now, bear with me as I explain, because I think this does reveal quite a bit. Ludicrously, as one of his last acts as president, Biden did pardon Fauci, ostensibly because, as COVID has become an increasingly polarized issue, and Fauci was the public face of lockdowns, mask mandates, and vaccine requirements, Republicans are targeting him. That was Biden's purported rationale for all of these pardons. What if Trump weaponizes the justice system and engages in a witch hunt against political enemies? Now, let's set aside for a moment that is exactly what Trump supporters think that Biden's Justice Department did to Trump. The real question has to be, is there a legitimate reason to think ex-public servant did something wrong, potentially criminal, or worthy of investigating? That should be the standard. In Fauci's case, the answer to that, again, in my view, unequivocally yes. Not because Fauci recommended COVID restrictions that I oppose, not because Fauci, as he admits, made up the social distancing rules, not because Fauci advocated vaccines, any of that. It's not a crime for him to propose COVID mitigation procedures that I think went too far or were wrong-headed. The crime, potentially, is advocating that public tax dollars be spent on reckless scientific experimentation on viruses in unsafe Chinese labs, and then misleading or even lying to Congress about whether he did so. That is the serious critique of Fauci, who is the foremost public advocate of gain-of-function research, the manipulation of dangerous viruses to make them more deadly and more contagious, theoretically, in order to better understand them. We do not know that such research is what caused the COVID-19 pandemic, but we do know that scientists sought grant funding to engage in exactly the kind of research that could have produced COVID-19, and they plan to do that research in Wuhan, China. Seems well worth investigating to me. Now, keep in mind the concerns about this research were never partisan to begin with. In fact, to his credit, President Barack Obama became very worried about it back in 2014. That year, Obama issued a pause on public funding of gain-of-function research, and even asked scientific teams already engaged in such research to, hey, could you cut it out on a voluntary basis? That's how concerned Obama was. Now, this news at the time received a neutral or even a favorable write-up in the New York Times, which quotes multiple infectious disease experts, not crazy right-wing people, but mainstream voices, as supporting the pause on gain-of-function research.
Did you know that Amazon has a $50 million fund that they have to pay out every month? And here's how you can get a cut of it.
Okay, here is where things get interesting. 2 years ago, as part of a lawsuit against the Biden administration for censoring COVID-related speech, Fauci sat for a lengthy deposition and answered questions about many topics, including for gain-of-function research. You might remember I did a radar on this 2 years ago. Here was the key part. Fauci was asked whether he recalled if there was a legal exception regarding the pause on gain-of-function research from 2014. Here's what he said in response, and I'm quoting directly from his deposition. He affirmed there was such an exception. Quote, yeah, the deliberations at the time, based on the need to continue certain critical research, that an exception clause was put in saying that under special circumstances, and I'll read it so that you get an understanding, an exception from the pause may be obtained if the head of a U.S. government funding agency determines that the research is urgently needed to protect the public health or national security, end quote. Fauci was then asked whether he ever invoked that exception, since he was the head of just such a funding agency. Fauci replied, quote, as I recall, exceptions were given to a couple of experiments, end quote. Fauci went on to say he did not remember specifically signing off on the exceptions, and that it may have been done by his deputies rather than by him. The papers might have crossed his desk. He can't quite remember. Fauci's also sparred very publicly with Senator Rand Paul of Kentucky, who's accused the doctor of making misleading testimony before Congress about whether research he funded met the definition of gain-of-function research, which is, of course, a potentially criminal issue. Okay, keep all that in mind. The text of Biden's pardon for Fauci from yesterday states that he is being pardoned for any and all offenses he may have committed or taken part in as director of the National Institutes for Allergies and Infectious Diseases, as a member of the White House Task Force on COVID, or as chief medical advisor to the president. The pardon also contains a note on the time period it covers. This is the key fact. Note that the pardon is not confined to the time period of the pandemic when Fauci was the COVID advisor, say January 1st, 2020. It's also not backdated to encompass Fauci's entire time as the head of that institution, which stretches back to 1984. So let's be clear on this, it's neither super narrow, i.e. just covering COVID, nor is it super broad, i.e. the whole time that he's the country's top medical guy. The pardon is backdated to encompass a time period that begins January 1st, 2014. Why is that? Well, we may never know for sure, but it certainly seems suspicious to me that 2014 is the year Obama issued that pause on gain-of-function research. I wonder if that was the year that any potential wrongdoing on the part of Fauci does, in fact, originate. And I was not the only person to notice this, Niall. It was the subject of some discussion on social media. Again, I don't know if that's the reason or what this means, but it is striking to me that it's neither narrowly focused on just the time where he becomes this kind of controversial public COVID figure, 2020 and on, nor is it just all your time in public life. It starts 2014. Yep. That's not a That's not a new presidential year. That's not a new administration year. That's the middle of Barack Obama's second term when he announced this pause on funding.
Yeah, I think those are completely valid questions to ask. I am, as you know, not a huge fan of pardon power or preemptive pardons generally, or of blanket pardons. Whether one would define this as a blanket pardon or not, I suppose, is debatable given the issue of the dates that you talk about. To state the very obvious, I'm not a virologist, but I did think that the gain of function debate was one of the more valid debates around the pandemic and around the handling of it. As I think we mentioned yesterday, I take a more generous view of the overall government response to the pandemic than I think you do. But the gain of function issue is a legitimate one, and I remember those congressional back and forths between Senator Paul and Fauci, and I think they were somewhat difficult to follow if you weren't pretty knowledgeable in the area, but I do think that it is obviously an important question as to whether the government funded research that could ultimately have produced inadvertently the virus.
And I went back and listened to the radar I did on this deposition and read the transcript of what Fauci said during it, and I just do find it tremendously frustrating. Barack Obama, political figure, not someone I agree with on a lot of stuff, but the democratically elected leader of the country says, you know what, I'm a little worried about this. I think we should stop doing it. Some in the expert scientific community were agreeing with him. Again, when the New York Times covers this, it's not contentious. The New York Times interviewed scientist after scientist who was like, yeah, we should pause this. So there was an expert consensus around it. That was what the democratically elected leader of the country wanted to do. But then you get this very vague national security exception for people like Dr. Fauci, or he says his deputies. They would decide, and then if maybe the paper crosses his desk, he signs it, he can't quite remember, and then they do it anyway for, again, there's this national security sized hole. It's not just in this context, in so many contexts where it could be law enforcement, it could be national security, it could be medical people, are still doing whatever they want to do, contrary to the clear will of the people who are elected. And I think that's a big problem we talk about in the context of actual national security, of literal foreign policy, rather. And here it was raising its ugly head in this context too.
Yeah, I mean, to the extent that happens, and you're much better versed in it than I am, to the extent that happens, obviously it's problematic. Obviously it's a legitimate grounds for inquiry. I think Fauci did receive a lot of unwarranted hostility, and there were threats to him and his family.
Well, no one shouldn't be threatened, his family shouldn't be threatened, regardless of if he's...
Exactly, regardless of what. But I'm also, as I say, not a huge fan of blanket pardons.
All right, well, we're starting off the day on a note of collegiality and agreement. That is not going to last long, I guarantee you that. Lots more to get into today, and it is going to be fiery. You won't want to miss it. Stay tuned.
Our victory is
Hang on, bros. All right, well, we got your 5 more 100 Ravens. 4 hours. We got 4 hours, brother. Let's see here. this one. Need 99 base. Got 20. Yeah. This one we need 30 million credit. And then 4. 5 right here. That's 5. And this one that'd be 2, 3, 4, 5. And make 6 if we can get it. Possible. Wow, we might as well say our best we can. We can. This one. XP periods. We don't got no bigger to put on that. Oh man, I don't know if we can second grind 30 million out or not. Well, we have to get that one. That's one of them to get.
Autopilot mode enabled.
Hopefully we can.
Battle starts. Okay. Reveal it, baby.
Did you know that putting 3 drops of cinnamon under your tongue can reverse your type 2 diabetes? Pay attention.
Great being with you. Thanks for having me.
With less than an hour left in his presidency, President Joe Biden issued a series of preemptive pardons for his siblings and their spouses. And this comes a little over a month after he pardoned his son, Hunter Biden, after he was convicted on tax and gun charges. What do you make of this 11th hour move?
I mean, I wonder who even did it. This is the president that lacks the mental capacity to be charged with a crime. And yet he can pardon his son and his family members. It really is just outrageous that that is what he's going to make of his legacy. And his legacy is going to be that he pardoned more people than any president in history, that he pardoned his family members, that he pardoned members of Congress that were engaged in political lawfare. I mean, it's really outrageous. But guess what? We're moving on. We are moving on. President Trump is going to save this country, and I'm just so happy to be a part of it.
When you say you're moving on, does that mean that the investigations into the Biden family and their business dealings are over? Because you and I talked in 2023, if you can believe it, almost 2 years ago, about the House Oversight Committee's investigation into the Biden family. What does that investigation look like in light of these preemptive pardons?
So we're not going to stop investigating. We're going to try this in the court of public opinion. We're going to unveil the reason that President Biden pardoned his family. We're going to unveil the reason that President Biden pardoned members of Congress, the January 6th committee, that were just engaging in such inappropriate, likely unlawful behavior. So we might not be able to charge them at DOJ, but the American people will know what has happened, and we must do that because it will allow us to make sure it never happens again.
I want to read you what he said his justification for the preemptive pardons were, and I'd like to get your take. He said this, quote, "My family has been subjected to unrelenting attacks and threats motivated solely by a desire to hurt me, the worst kind of partisan politics. Unfortunately, I have no reason to believe these attacks will end." What are your thoughts on that statement?
The fact that this is coming from the man that weaponized the Department of Justice, that raided his political opponent's house in Mar-a-Lago for alleged classified documents when he, as a senator, took classified documents that he had there was no legal argument that he could make, and he had them in his garage in Delaware. This is a man that his own Department of Justice said that he lacked the mental capacity to be charged with a crime. So he weaponized the Department of Justice. He weaponized the FBI. The Democrats weaponized the New York criminal and civil justice system, and the DA in Georgia. I mean, all these people have lost their mind. The Democrats did everything they could to hold on to power, but the American people saw through it. They saw through it. So yes, we're going to move on, but we're going to make sure this never happens again.
What is your take on the idea of a preemptive pardon? Because this is what he also said. The issuance of these pardons should not be mistaken as an acknowledgement that they engaged in any wrongdoing, nor should acceptance be misconstrued as an admission of guilt for any offense. In your view, why give a preemptive pardon if the person has not yet been has not committed a crime, or if you're on the receiving end of a preemptive pardon, why take that if you're innocent?
Right. You don't have to be a lawyer or have experience as a legislator to just know that just doesn't make sense. It just doesn't make sense. And the amount of money that the Biden family got from foreign governments, the amount of money that they got from oligarchs when they have no legitimate business skill set or capacity to engage in any kind of arm's length transaction. President Biden, his legacy is going to be that he was corrupt, that his family took advantage of him, and that his mental decline caused what was a fairly respectable 30, 40 years of public service to be remembered for his last year in office, which, I mean, is just really tragic. But we've turned the page. The American people are going to be okay. We're going to fix the last 4 years. President Trump is going to save this country. And like I said earlier, I'm just excited to be a part of it.
From hard hats to steel-toed boots, Grainger's got your safety needs covered. Literally.
It was worse than Nixon or Carter. Biden was. I mean, he did his lawfare out in the open. Carter didn't do lawfare. Nixon did, but I mean, and it wasn't to the extent of what Biden did. He publicly did his shit. You got Carter's about on the same pages as Biden's about on the same page as Carter about the poverty list going up, poverty going up, inflation, loss of jobs. I don't care what they say, man. There is no damn way that that they lost all that jobs during COVID. That's what come back. I tell you was saying was, I mean, think about it, man. He didn't create no jobs. He didn't. And if he did, where are they? I mean, somebody show them to me. All the Build Back Greener bullshit was
Mr. Hunt. Hey, Mr. Chairman. Biden attempted to reimagine immigration in America. Biden wanted you to think that it was normal to live in an America with open borders, to live in an America with sanctuary cities, to fly 30,000 people per month from Cuba, Haiti, Nicaragua, and Venezuela into America on commercial flights, to turn temporary protected status into permanent protected status. That is not normal. It is not constitutional. And now, thank God, it's over.
For now.
Do you want to know what is normal? President Trump's policies are normal, and he's back, and he is here to help. Within hours of Trump's taking office, President Trump deleted the CBP One app, reformed the parole program, and placed a real border czar, Tom Homan, in charge. And he is a serious man. Trump also signed a flurry of executive orders restoring normal border security and immigration standards to this great nation. Again, thank God he's back. When Trump got elected, we knew that the liberal media we knew exactly what they would do because they do the same thing during the previous Trump administration. We knew that they would attempt to pull our heartstrings to shame us into changing our standard immigration laws. In fact, on the day that President Trump got inaugurated, the liberal media posted a story of a woman crying when her CBP One app appointment was canceled. That tactic is not going to work this time, because we have seen firsthand for the last 4 years the devastating effects that Biden's border policies have had on all Americans. And while I empathize with everyone who wants to come to America, because again, we know this is the greatest place in the world, this compassion is misplaced, as it usually is with the left. The woman's tears that I care the most about are the mothers of Lincoln Riley, Jocelyn Nungary, and Rachel Morin. Lincoln Riley was killed by an illegal alien while out on a jog. It should be known that her killer committed a crime in another American city, but he was released because that city, you guessed it, was a sanctuary city. Jocelyn, while on her way to a convenience store, was killed by 2 illegal aliens who entered through the southern border just a few months earlier. At the time, these illegal aliens were still wearing their U.S.-issued ankle tracking monitors when they killed her. Miss Moran, a young mother of 5 children, was hiking on a Maryland trail when an illegal alien attacked and killed her. And I could sadly name many more circumstances just like this. I don't know about other countries, but in America, our daughters, and I have 2 of them, should be able to go for a jog and a run or to a convenience store without the fear of an illegal alien killing them. That goes for all of our children in this nation. I serve this country to protect my children and our sons and daughters.
They can't protect their kids.
Mr. Fabricatore, thank you so much for being here. As always, you're one of my favorites. One of the executive orders that President Trump has enacted so far, of them, which one do you think is going to be the most helpful and why?
Well, I number one, I think all the executive orders that he's putting through are going to be, they're needed. There's a reason why he did it. But securing our border, number one, making sure that CBP app is no longer being used so that there's fraud coming into this country. I think overall everything that President Trump is trying to do for the border is for the right reason. The number one priority should be protecting American citizens, and I think that was the goal of President Trump.
Thank you. Ms. Vaughn, given these last few executive orders as well, I'd actually like your take on that. And do you think it is going to improve our border and our immigration status, or is it going to hurt our immigration status? It's out of curiosity.
The set of executive orders are definitely going to improve our immigration status, especially the one that rescinded the Biden orders. I especially look forward to the one that is going to increase state and local partnerships with federal authorities to work on this common mission.
Thank you, ma'am. I'll end with this. Do not allow the left to gaslight you. Secure borders are normal. I have someone that has deployed all over the world. Every other country would never behave and allow 20 million people to enter their country illegally. That's not normal. So thank God we're going to get back to normalcy, and thank you all for leading our charge. I yield back to the remainder of my time.
Thank you, Mr. Knox.
Ship is on fire.
Watch how coconut oil affects belly fat. Is coconut oil a superfood or unhealthy slug? The answer is both, depending on how you're using it. See, coconut oil is packed with MCT that gives you the gut-boosting weight loss benefits of a keto diet without the extreme diet. It's a phenomenal way to help slim down without cutting carbs.
Problem solved, sir.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, with me today are 2 of my colleagues from my Senate office, Mr. John Lowry and Mr. Jackson Bewley. I'm grateful for their good judgment, counsel, and advice. I am delighted, Mr. President, to see so many members of Congress, and I mean this sincerely, so many members of Congress embrace the call for a less wasteful federal government, or a more efficient federal government. We spend a little over $6 trillion a year, as Senator Sanders so eloquently pointed out. When you spend $6 trillion a year, somebody's getting $6 trillion a year. Every penny in our budget has a constituency, and that constituency will fight us. They will fight us. And I recognize that, and it's something that as we go about downsizing government, we have to be mindful of. However, there is one constituency that is not going to be able to fight us in our quest to scrutinize federal spending, and I'm referring to dead people. And that's what I want to talk about today. I want to talk about dead people and the fact that they're getting money from the federal government. In fiscal year 2023 alone, this is just 1 year, our government sent $1.3 billion, not $1.3 million. We sent $1.3 billion in checks to dead people. Those aren't my numbers. Those numbers come from the Office of Management and Budget. That's just 1 year. Not only is the federal government sending checks to dead people, those checks are being cashed. Now, I have heard, Mr. President, of dead people voting, but cashing the checks, you don't have to be God's perfect idiot to realize that there's fraud happening with respect to all this money. Here's how this problem arises. When you die in America, your name is sent to the Vital Records Office in your state. And at that point, the Social Security Administration pays each state to get an ongoing list of deceased Americans in that state. So far, so good. The Social Security Administration takes this data, this list of deceased people, and they compile on an ongoing basis a list called the Death Master File. The Death Master File. That's just a list of everybody, updated daily, of people in the United States who are deceased. Why does the Social Security Administration do this? Well, so the SSA, Social Security Administration, can stop sending people who have died checks. So far, so good. There's just one problem. I discovered this about 7 years ago. The Social Security Administration refuses to share that list with anybody else in the federal government. And they won't share it with any other federal agency, many of which send out checks. The Department of Treasury, for example, sends out checks. SSA won't share the information with them. The Small Business Administration sends out a lot of checks. The Social Security Administration has a list of all deceased Americans, but SSA will not share that information with the SBA. I'll give you some examples. You remember, Mr. President, when we were in the coronavirus crisis, we had an economic meltdown. We sent stimulus checks to Americans to try to keep the economy on its feet. We paid $1.4 billion to dead people, and they cashed the checks. The Paycheck Protection Program, which was a part of our stimulus program, paid out $38 million alone to dead people. These were people who were using, live people obviously, who were using dead people's Social Security numbers to collect payments. The COVID-19 Economic Disaster Injury Disaster Loan Fund, another culprit, was involved in sending checks to dead people. The Department of Veterans Affairs, and I'm not blaming them, in many respects it's not their fault. A couple of years ago, a scam artist stole the Social Security number of a deceased veteran, and received about $825,000 in checks from 1997 to 2024. Now, the person committing this fraud was just quietly accepting the checks. Somehow the Department of Veterans Affairs, and for some reason, stopped sending that person the checks. So the fraudster just picked up the phone and called the Department of Veterans Affairs. He impersonated the dead person and convinced them to start sending the checks again. Again, not necessarily the fault of the Department of Veterans Affairs. The VA didn't know that the Social Security number belonged to a deceased person. Another example, a person in Ohio was able to collect her deceased mother's Veterans Affairs benefits for 48 years. 48 years before she was caught. The truth is, Mr. President, it's sort of like saying, being asked, you didn't go fishing on Saturday. How many fish do you think you didn't catch? We don't know how much money we're sending out every year to dead people. Let me give you an example of how screwed up the data is, Mr. President. This is a strong indicator of what's wrong. The Social Security Administration, if you ask them, will tell you that there are, according to their records, there are 6.5 million Americans living today in America who are 112 years of age or older.
Did you know that Amazon has a $50 million fund that they have to pay out every month? And here's how you can get a cut of it. My name is Charlotte Mickelson, and
they say 6.5 million Americans who are at least 112 years old or older. Now, I don't know about you, Mr. President, but I don't know anybody who's 112 years old. And I checked, at any given time, there are about 40 people on an ongoing basis in the world who are fortunate enough to live to be 112. But the data is so screwed up that according to SSA, 6.5 million people are 112 years old. A number of years ago, 7 years ago, I started working with Senator Tom Carper, a fine American, if there ever was one. I started working with Tom on this issue. I went to Social Security and I said, look, this problem is easily solved. Just share the death master file with other agencies, and especially share it with the Department of Treasury. I don't want to confuse anyone, but the Department of Treasury has a do not pay list of people who aren't supposed to receive checks for a variety of reasons that other agencies consult. But I said to my friends at Social Security, why don't you just give the death master file to other agencies? They said, we can't. It's illegal. The way we construe our enabling statutes, we don't have the authority. Well, I said, okay, I'm not going to argue with them. We'll just go pass a law. It was harder than I thought, but we did. In 2020, Senator Carpenter and I passed a bill. The bill was called Stopping Improper Payments to Deceased People Act. And it gave the Social Security Administration permission, and indeed directed the Social Security Administration to start sharing its list of dead people with other agencies in the federal government. I don't want to get down in the weeds, but believe it or not, we had people oppose the legislation, and many people within the federal government. So in order to get our bill passed, we had to compromise. We had to agree to only implement this requirement that Social Security share the list of dead people with everybody else. We could only get them to agree to do it for 3 years for a trial program. This clock started ticking on our 3-year period in December of 2023. So obviously 3 years is right upon us, and if we don't make this program permanent, it's going to expire in 2026. So Senator Carper and I have introduced another bill. It does basically the same thing as the 2020 bill, but it makes the program permanent. This new bill is called Ending Improper Payments to Deceased People Act. Okay. And we need to pass it.
Yeah, you do.
There's been a lot of squabbling back and forth. I don't want to do anything to step on too many toes to jeopardize my bill, but about how much the states are going to be paid and who's going to pay Social Security for sharing their dead person's list with the rest of the government. I think we have a lot of it worked out, but we need to go pass this bill. I mean, this makes no sense whatsoever. I can understand if we talk about changing the Medicaid program, for example. What's fair, what's unfair. I can understand debating that, and I can understand reasonable people disagreeing over what changes, if any, we ought to make to the Medicaid program. I get it. I just listened to Senator Sanders once again speak very eloquently about the waste at the Department of Defense. That's something that reasonable people, all of whom agree that we ought to have a strong defense, but reasonable people can disagree over how to achieve that. But my God, you don't have to be Euclid to figure out that this is just fraud. It's abuse. It's low-hanging fruit, and it's so easily solved. All we have to do is direct the Social Security Administration on a permanent basis, not a 3-year trial 3-year trial basis, on a permanent basis to start sharing the list of dead people with the Department of Treasury and everybody else in federal government.
Ship is on fire.
Who wants it. And then everybody's on the same page, and we know who's deceased, and we can stop sending the money to dead people who cash the checks. Now, I'm talking about this now, Mr. President. I've talked about it before on the floor. I'm not going to try to pass the bill this year. I'm not.
Problem solved, sir.
We're running up against the clock, and we have the NDAA. We have a CR to pass, and we've got to keep government open. We've got to renew the flood insurance program, and you know all that, Mr. President. But I'm going to be back I'm like the Terminator. I will be back as soon as the new Congress is sworn in. Many of my colleagues have said to me, it's time we stop talking about who needs to pay more in taxes and start talking about and asking the question with respect to what the hell happened to the money. And I agree with that. I can't think of an easier place to start. Let's just pass this simple bill. Let's stop sending money to dead people. Again, we can debate about the wisdom of dead people voting. We all know what happens. But cashing checks, that's a bridge too far. Thank you, Mr. President, for your time and attention. I suggest the absence of a quorum.
Clerk, call the roll.
Ms. Bob, I am a primary care physician. I'm frustrated, and it is just not what I signed up for. I'm tired of our sick care model. I'm not choosing not to participate. I got in this to help people get well, harm them, protect them, lead them, teach them. That's not what I'm seeing in the healthcare system. I'm choosing to take a different approach as a doctor for the sake of people that are relying on us to teach them how to be healthy. Someone tell me why. Why don't doctors tell you to take something as simple as magnesium instead of a stool softener, knowing that the stool softener dehydrates your bowels? Why don't doctors tell you to take D3 in the winter? Because you can't get it from the sun. It's gone, depending on where you live in the country. And it radically improves the immune system and impacts your sleep. Why don't doctors tell you to change your diet? When you're having heartburn or indigestion, your body's literally revolting against you, instead of giving you something like Prilosec or Nexium, knowing that studies show that they're linked to kidney failures and osteoporosis. Why don't doctors tell you to focus on herbs or certain foods to heal? Why don't doctors tell you to lower the toxic chemicals that's inside of your house, knowing that it's 100 times more toxic in your house than outside? That might be causing you your constant headaches or your allergies. All the fragrances and chemicals and the toxic buildup that gets into our cells are what creates these things. Why are you informed by your doctor that if you eat something as simple as a grapefruit every day, that it'll support lowering your blood pressure naturally and you don't need or might not need a medication? That's why
We get this one.
Autopilot mode enabled.
Lot to get, bro, and right at 4 hours. 4 hours. What? 4 hours and 7 minutes. We'll not do it, man. We won't. I turned the base there. This one's the credits. We got 6 million, so we still need 24 million. God, we'll never do it, man. Never do it, bros. That's might as well just call it a night and piss on the floor here on it. I'll be back later. Please like and sub. Hey, bro. Yeah, I give on it, bro. I ain't gonna be able to get it. What do you say, Timmy? I see you and all. I'm sorry I'm in the stream right at the moment. I just ain't gonna be able to get it, dudes. There's no way. Not gonna be able to do it.
big enough economic boosters and stuff to do it. Well, we can keep trying to keep going, but I mean, at the end of the day, we're just not going to be able to get it, bros. I mean, we just ain't. Not going to be able to pull it off, man. It really sucks too because, you know, all righty, bros. We'll try. We will. We'll keep trying, man. Hell, ain't gonna kill us. Just keep trying. I'd like to get it. Need a ship. Want a ship. I paid for it. You know. Daggone, I should have started in hard 2 days ago, man. Been sick, bros. It's cancer, man. I'm not making up excuses. It's the truth. I've even got set back on my cancer. It's went to spread, bros. So, yeah.
Autopilot mode enabled.
Action stations.
Bad as I hate to say that, as bad as it is, it is. Honestly had a fork in my life. I don't know what's going to happen, but I'm not scared of this.
Awaiting instructions.
Whatever God wants. That's what I'll do. Got no choice.
Good luck and fair seas. Enemy force sighted on the horizon. Enemy destroyer sighted. Torpedoes to port.
Autopilot mode disabled.
Okay.
We're hull below the waterline. We're flooding quickly. Torpedoes, direct front. Problem solved, sir. All stations, concentrate fire on the target. Requesting fire on the designated target. The ship is on fire!
Autopilot mode enabled.
Enemy battleship foundered.
Okay. Let's go here.
Our team has taken the lead.
We're trying to get the biggest we can get.
Enemy battleship destroyed.
I don't want to stop. I want to keep going, bros.
Enemy cruiser sunk.
Oh, yeah, me anyway. Go to the better end.
Destination reached. Autopilot mode disabled.
Between islands on me. Yeah. Come on, bro. Move on 30 seconds. And what would have been 13 measly seconds? We got 30, almost 34,000. 35. Be, yeah, 23. Let's try this again. I don't know, bros. We'll just keep going. I'm sorry about not telling you hi, guys. I was on a YouTube page, was letting it run. I could go back and forth. Really sorry about that. Really am.
Autopilot mode enabled.
Action stations.
I just can't believe, man. I'm so close, but still so far. We're literally, we got 4 hours. We got 4 hours to do this.
Awaiting instructions. Enemy force detected.
12 more would probably good.
Enemy cruiser sighted. Enemy battleship detected. Enemy cruiser detected. Enemy battleship sighted.
Autopilot mode disabled.
Enemy cruiser detected.
fire. We've destroyed an enemy cruiser.
Problem solved, sir.
Requesting support. Enemy battleship detected.
We've destroyed an enemy cruiser.
Torpedoes to starboard. Taking on water quickly.
Our team has taken the lead. Enemy battleship sunk.
Problem solved, sir.
Ship destroyed. Battleship destroyed.
Autopilot mode enabled.
The enemy is about to win.
Enemy aircraft carrier detected.
Autopilot mode disabled.
We're hull below the waterline. We're flooding quickly. Problem solved, sir. Enemy severely damaged. The ship is on fire.
6. We got that one, boy. That one. A million, boy, that's a lot. That's a lot. Yeah, boy, we damn. We got Biden destroyed one bit ribbon from battle. My rat bros, that's